Hello and welcome to Net That Haul. I'm FPL Nemo and I'm rejoined by at FPL Lens Gabriel off the beach. Still on the FPL beach though, but he is back. And today we have the Gameweek 35 matchup show. We're hoping to be wrapped up before the matches tonight for City and Liverpool. Do keep us up to date with the lineup news in about 1 hour's time in the live chat. And thank you all for tuning in on this UK-friendly hour, which I'm very pleased about. How was your trip, I guess, to start off with, Gabe? Did you manage to unwind? And I saw you kind of took a dive into the cold lake to recover from the Salah captaincy.
I'm still searching for my rank at the bottom of that cenote, to be perfectly honest.
That was game week 33, though, right? That wasn't game week 34, right? It's been a while since I saw you.
Man,
I don't know which game week it was.
When you're on the beach, everything kind of just blends into this one peaceful existence. So I'm just blissed out. I feel great. I'm completely re-energized. I'm fired up for today's show because I have some feelings.
I'm sure we'll definitely. I think I can imagine what it's about because I had some strong words over the last few days in my group chats about the latest annual copying content creators debate. Normally, it just happens during international breaks, but this game week's dragging on like it's fucking COVID season all over again. Like it's just like lingering on one game at a time. Like who even had assets in Monday's game? Fuck my life, man. Like what a dreadful day of bank holiday for me in the UK. One shit game against Leicester and Everton. But yeah, thank you all for tuning in. Just in terms of the thumbnail, for anyone on podcast who can't see it, we've gone with Julian Alvarez. He is obviously someone who I am potentially looking at for Game Week 35. Man City are one of the early kickoffs. He's done well in KDB's absence so far. We'll see if he starts again tonight. But yeah, he could be quite an exciting punt for those who don't have a third Man City asset yet. If we heard Haaland was benched, if Alvarez started, for example, home to Leeds is pretty tasty fixture. So I'm looking into him, and that's why I've kind of gone for him because I just can't fathom a player this good not like playing regular Premier League football. Like it's unreal. Like this is a World Cup winner, so it's just a bit crazy, right? But yeah, no, I really like the sound of him, and kudos to those who went early. Some actually bought him this week, Gabe.
Yeah, and yeah, kudos to them because it was quite the risk knowing that there would between Alvarez and Haaland there would be limited minutes, like between the two of them, right? So you're investing into limited minutes with high upside, and they fucking smashed it. I'm super happy for them, and yeah, what a player. It's true, and I think Pep knows that he couldn't leave him on the bench for very long, so he's definitely going to be worked in more and more, especially with this KDB's injury, right? So it kind of makes him that much more attractive, maybe even worth taking the hit for.
Definitely. I'm considering the other option, which doesn't seem as spicy for me, is to buy like a Man City defender and play them over someone like Trippier this week. But if I'm going to do that, I'd rather just like roll and have two transfers in double 36. So I feel like at least Alvarez is a bit more exciting.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I would say, ¿por qué no los dos? Yeah. There aren't the defensive options this week are quite tricky. There aren't really great options. So going to a Stones makes a ton of sense, right? Along with an Alvarez, and that might be my two transfers this week for a hit.
And I'm sure when we look at the City matchup as well, I'm interested to see what the captaincy metric and stuff look like as we get to the end of the show. But I am keen to see what we think of a punt on someone like Foden, with obviously the Champions League ties coming up. You imagine some of those who play in the Champions League might be rested in the Premier League at home to Leeds. So again, Foden could be back into our thinking. He's someone who could be quite explosive if you're looking to go that way. I'm a Grealish owner, and I'll be real with you. I still don't quite really know why I got him apart from X minutes.
We'll get to that point.
Yeah, we'll get to that point.
A lot of people are questioning Grealish right now, and I have some feelings about that as well.
Yeah. Should we why don't we do the philosophy of the week first, and then we'll do a couple of shout outs to everyone in the live chat before we go into the matchups. But obviously it's nice to have you back. This is what I call the real philosophy of the week, because Mariners were kind of just his chance to rant maybe rather than a philosophy. But I feel like you maybe have philosophy and rant.
I have a whole lot of a whole lot of things going on right now. I think Mariner's like a soapbox, like that unhoused person that stands in a box on the corner of the street and touts the end of days.
Hyde Park Speaker's Corner for anyone who knows about that in London is standing there shouting the good speech.
Yes, yes, that's Mariner right there. So FPL Philosophy of the Week for Gameweek 35 comes to us from His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And he said, when you realize that everything springs only from yourself, you will learn both peace and joy. Nima, why did I select this quote, Nima?
I guess one reason is that we play a fantasy game where we move like shirts on the screen and like do it, I guess, to compete with friends and family and to have fun and to enjoy games more. And yet there seems to be this faux outrage about how people play. Everyone's telling people play your game, play your way, and then they're sitting here judging others about how they choose to play. It just seems a bit mental, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly. 100%. If the ecosystem around you, right, is of players, if all of, let's say, your the people that pay attention to the things that you do, it could be your friends, could be your followers, whatever, right? If these people are copying you, maybe you've created a fucking ecosystem to have people that copy, right? So don't then, after you've created this shit, don't go back and complain that people are fucking copying you and then shaming them for doing something in a system that you fucking created. This is like the height of fucking hypocrisy, and I got no time for it. Dante's ninth level of hell was reserved for like hypocrites and murderers and shit like that, but hypocrites were down there as well, and
They were
lawyers and
with
shit.
them, damn.
Yes, yeah, that's how low you fucking are. If you're shaming other people and looking and promoting that kind of shaming, I think look at yourself, look at the ecosystems that you've created, and then once you realize that all of that you are that and that is you, then you'll truly be at peace and you can proceed with joy. So everything comes from us. We've created everything.
No, I totally dig that. I think my kind of like I guess arguments in my group chats were around the idea that like I don't really care what anyone does with their team. It makes zero difference to me. And we're only complaining if they're doing well from it. But I
Mm.
don't see anyone complaining when like, 50,000 people copy someone and that person's having a bad season. So 50,000 people have a worse season than me.
Right.
Like it's only when there's copiers and they're doing better and you're like, oh damn, but like it doesn't always work. Just copying, like, okay, like for me, like I understand why people would be reserved and think it's a bad way to play, but like where's the fun in it, you would ask. But for some people, they just don't give a shit. They don't watch football, they don't care, they don't have the time to invest, and they just join their mini league with friends, family, or colleagues for fun, and they're looking to invest the absolute bare minimum effort or time into this because they're not that 1% of super engaged obsessive managers about the game like we are. So who am I to care how they play or what they do? I'm playing like a ghost race, like in car racing games, you're always trying to like beat your own ghost. For me, FPL is about just trying to beat my own personal best. I don't really care what anyone else is doing. I don't. That doesn't really
and,
bother
and
me.
that's the confusing part, right? It's like why do you give a shit what anybody else does? If it's this sense of like personal responsibility and do your own thing, why aren't you just doing your own thing? Like, and why are you the arbiter of which personal game is okay to play and which isn't, right? What if somebody has three jobs, right? And but maybe they need some extra money, and this is a really easy way to win money in mini leagues. You go, you copy somebody that's successful, and you win some fucking cash in a mini league, and you're gonna judge them for that? Like, what do you know of these people and their lives or anything? Like, get
I
off
think it
this
depends on
fucking
the
high
rules,
horse.
right? So, like, I've
Huh?
heard of like cash leagues where they tell people up front, like, you shouldn't copy anyone. If we find you copying, like, we'll kick you out. You can't win. And they've kicked those people out because it was made explicit at the beginning. But then
Sure.
I've seen other people on their high horses try to kick someone out at the end of a season when that rule was never made clear.
Right.
And I'm a bit like, yeah, like you should have been clear about that rule before they joined. That's not their fault. That's on you. You got to
Yeah.
communicate the consequences if you don't want them to do this. And fair play. I would be pissed if someone did that in one of my leagues, but if I was so against it, I would make it clear that that was one of the rules of entry.
If you're going to be pissed, don't join a league that doesn't have the rule. Only join leagues that have that rule that you can't copy people. Otherwise, shut the fuck up and play the game and have a good time.
And I think the other thing, the bottom line before we move on to the matchups and just say a few shout outs, is the thing that really gets me, right, is like the pricing is shit in FPL this year. And like it's been focused to cater to casuals, people who don't want to invest time and effort. It's all about being able to afford a starting 11 made up of like big six teams, well-known household names that you don't really have to think beyond that. Back in the day, you used to have to make like sacrifices to play like a freemium, or you had to play like a 4.5 million CDM in your 11 every week. This season, like with the way the pricing is, I just feel like it's not necessarily even just copying. It's everyone's teams are so similar. And we're like making gains on like our fucking goalkeeper or like our third fucking defender or just like really rogue shit. Like, oh yeah, like, you know, McAllister versus fucking March or like Isaac versus Wilson, like Aki versus Laporte. Like there's like almost far core places to gain, right? I just think the game has become a bit stale this season. Like they don't change anything. They don't update the rules. They don't want to make it complex because they want to make it casual friendly. I think that's part of maybe where people's frustration is coming from, because it's one of those seasons where it feels like if you didn't start off well, it's kind of like, how do you catch up? Because everyone has the same value kind of budget friendly team. Like, you know, like Rashford was 6.5 million down from 9.5. Like Martinelli was 6 mil. Jesus was 8 mil. Like you got these Brighton mids that were 5 mil. Like it's not that hard to have an okay team, is it? And then everyone permacaps Haaland. So it's kind of like, what do you do? All the other kind of premiums flop, generally speaking. And
yeah,
I just like to see
think
it shake up next year a bit, because I think that's part of the problem. I think people are focusing on the idea of copying, but everyone's fucking teams are the same. So we're naming and shaming individuals. But then I look through all the Twitter mini leagues, everything's the fucking same. Everyone has one or two players different. It's like, are we really going to stand on a high horse and try and claim that like someone copied when everyone has the same fucking team?
Yeah.
So yeah, this season's definitely it's not been great. I get like what Andrew's saying about, is it that non-top six clubs are dominating? I don't know about that, because you know people had triple Arsenal and they were like 6 mil each. Like, you know, people had, like Haaland should never have been 11.5 million. That's disgraceful pricing. It's just lazy pricing. From my point of view, they've released the game way too early last summer to try and capitalize on a marketing push and get more signups, because that's all they care about. And by the time the game came around, they hadn't put thought into it. That's my view. So, you know, next season, if Haaland costs less than 14 mil, then they're fucking lazy. That's what I can tell you. That's just the way I see it. But yeah, I think also there was way more doubles than usual. Obviously, there was the Queen's funeral, which led to more postponements than usual. So I think where doubles and blanks come in as well, you can end up with quite a lot of similarities. But yeah, we'll okay, no. I guess the main thing though is really, let's kind of see how they do next year, because that's my kind of hope. I'm praying the game is less stale next year. And I've been hearing on other pods as well, like people are just like, I think, burnt out. Like they want to join you on the FPL beach. Like they kind of just want the season over and done with. I think at this point, you got to set yourself a target or a goal for the next kind of 4 game weeks that are left or whatever, and just try to hit that goal in a stretch goal maybe, and then be done with it and enjoy.
I think you can do the opposite. I think setting the goal is the problem. At least from the FPL beach, it's the problem. I let go of all targets, of all goals. It's a wide open horizon in which the sun is going to set, and that's it.
Yeah, no, that is true. So maybe Foden is the kind of pick that would appeal to you then, because he's just like the ideal pick.
No, Alvarez is my boy. And I need a defender, so unfortunately it won't be Foden. But no, and I'll tell you. But let's get to City later when we get into the matchups, and I'll tell you who it would be if I had the choice.
Sounds good. All right, let's go to the matchups, and as we just get into that, I'm going to just shout out a couple of people. So, good evening to Val. Thanks for tuning in, buddy. Good to see Nick Khan. Thank you for tuning in, bro. Lindsay, one of our haulers. Good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. Blue Danube Joe. Good to see you, buddy. Claire FPL, good to see you. Andrew was going to riot if we didn't start the show. Good to see you, boss. Assad, thank you for the kind words. Good to see you as well. Combe, hit that like, people, as he says. I normally only remember about 2 hours into the show, so thanks for that reminder. Elron, one of our Patreons, good to see you, buddy. Podner, another hauler. We got Shakalaka Mekaleka. Yep, the big Sam confidence is all we need. Don't know if you saw the interview, Gabe, but he said that, like, obviously, like, he doesn't understand why people think that, like, Arteta and Pep and Klopp and all these guys are better than him because, like, he has as much ball knowledge as them. And he then went on about how he's like the greatest of the great and how if he was called Aladici, he'd be a top 4 manager. But because he's called Allardyce, they don't consider him a good
That was
manager.
an old interview, though, right? I remember that quote from a couple of years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, what I love is Sam, 2 weeks ago, he went on the Leeds podcast and said that Leeds were absolute shit and they were in trouble. 2 weeks later, he gets hired. I love it.
He did say that he was surprised because he didn't think people would be giving jobs out with 4 games to go in this league. And he was like, I saw the number ringing and I recognized like the well-known name. And he goes, I picked up and then like obviously they made me an offer and I just kind of took 2 seconds and I accepted it. Well, I was like, this guy cracks me up. We missed you, Zach. Good to have you tuning in live. Mike Halpin, another hauler. Thank you, buddy. Checking in, we've not missed anyone. Catherine, good to see you. Ballroom Jam, just in time.
Nice.
Neil, thank you for tuning in. Another hauler. And Tom Gorish, good to see you, buddy. I think that's everyone for now. We'll go straight to the matchups just because we've taken a while to get started. But yeah, the first game is Bournemouth versus Chelsea. So at the moment, they're level on points, which that in itself is a fucking shock for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Chelsea are 9 points ahead of the relegation zone with 600 million spent. I guess it kind of shows that you need some consistency. You can't just buy 50 new players and just hope it all works. And my God, what is going on with Lampard? I was obviously at the Emirates last night, and I don't know what to tell you, mate. Like, they just look like a team that has no idea about what they're doing. But they just, like, I can't see how they beat any of their opponents. They got Bournemouth and Forest in the next 2 games. They're basically fucking relegation 6-pointers. And then they face, like, I think it's like City, United, and Newcastle. Like 3 of the best teams. Like, these are not 5 good games for Chelsea. So obviously they have a double in 37. But do these 2 fixtures before the double look as good as they did on the green FDR?
I mean, it shows. I think all the metrics are unanimous here with a almost like exactly even matchup fixture between these two. NetxG has 1.65 for Chelsea, 1.4 for Bournemouth, but there's a slight goalkeeper influence there that's propping Chelsea up 0.1 and bringing Bournemouth down 0.1. So if you remove the goalkeeper influence from this fixture, it's Bournemouth 1.5, Chelsea 1.55 according to NetxG. To underscore that, we have Mariners FDR with a Bournemouth of negative 0.4 attacking FDR and Chelsea negative 0.5, almost identical. Zonal matchups are identical from the left, center, right, 2.5, 3.6, 3.0 for both of them. Big chances, 2.1 for Bournemouth, 1.5 for Chelsea, almost the same. Shots on target, 4.5 for Bournemouth, 4.4 for Chelsea. And then shots in the box, 7.7 for Bournemouth and 8.2 for Chelsea with a headed matchup, 2.2 for Bournemouth and 1.9 for Chelsea. Like everything is exactly the same. There's one difference. Bournemouth's at home. Bournemouth wins this game, I think.
Yeah. No, I honestly think Chelsea are going to have a tough time here in this fixture. Personally, obviously Reece James is out for the season. At this point, I just worry about his career as a footballer. But he's going the way of some famous Arsenal players like Abu Diaby, who spent about 10 years on the injury table. It's not looking good. I just don't know what to say about them. I will say one thing, though. Mudryk, when he subbed on last night, still looked very good. I think he's got the raw ingredients to become a pretty great player one day. I just don't know if it's going to happen like with Frank. Like, I don't understand how Frank walks into these jobs, if I'm perfectly honest. Like, he has 0. Like, I think he's got 0 wins in the last 18 league games he's managed. Like, that's half a goddamn Premier League season. How do you have 0 fucking wins? Like,
how do you get hired? How do you get hired?
Like, how? Like
any top division team, let alone a team like Chelsea. And then when you do get hired, like Frank had a little bit of success last season with Everton. You remember that? You remember what he did? It started with the Merseyside derby. And he just fucking shithoused his way.
That's what I was about to say. So I feel like he's what last night showed me is that tactics over passion, because he is a passion merchant.
Yes,
His
he's a passion.
whole strategy and tactics is let's get our fans behind us, let's cause a ruckus, and we're going to be passion merchants. And if we're passionate, we'll win. There's
But
like zero game plan.
he has a team of mercenaries. You can't be a passion merchant with a team of mercenaries because the mercenaries don't give a shit about your fucking passion. They just want to get paid.
Did you hear all those athletic articles before Potter got thrown out where they were like, there was too many players for the dressing room. So like Mudryk and Madueke and these guys, they had to like change in the corridors and shit. And when there was team meetings, people had to like sit on the floor because like there wasn't seats. And like, what the fuck is this? Like, what have they done? Like, there's like some summer camp where they've sold 10 more seats than they should. And like the parents' kids are going to come and ask for a refund, honestly. Like, oh man,
But
it's
yeah,
just, I feel for Chelsea fans, honestly, because like I just didn't expect this. Like, what is Bowley doing?
I don't know, but there's nothing to see here in this matchup. This
I was gonna
fixture.
say, like, I'm like, if you've got their assets, would you at least hold? Like, if you had
No.
like a Chilwell, would you just get rid despite the double in these
Yeah,
Bournemouth and Forest games? You
yeah.
just move on to someone, even
If
maybe like a United or City
you
player,
have
just someone else.
Solanke, maybe you can hold, but that's it. No Chelsea
I
assets. Get
guess
rid.
maybe would you play Solanke this week?
If you have to, I wouldn't be terribly opposed to it. But I think you could do better if you have Solanke and you can get up to Alvarez. I would probably take that punt.
Just make that move now, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. All right, let's go to the next game because I don't think this game is really much to write home about, especially beyond Chilwell and Solanke. I'm not really sure who
No.
anyone would own from this. Maybe Kepa. I guess when we look at the keepers in the next few matchups, it's
Mm,
like, do you play Kepa, or if you've got like Raya as your second keeper, do you play him? So we can compare the defensive FDR of that Bournemouth game for Kepa.
right.
And well, yeah, Nick, as I said it, Nick Khan's
Yeah.
question, I'll
There
start
it is.
after. It's like, should I play Kepa or Raya versus Liverpool? That's wild that we even have to debate whether we play like a keeper playing Liverpool versus a keeper playing Bournemouth. Shows you how much the mighty have fallen.
Mm-hmm.
Quick shout out to Dread as well, another one of our haulers who's tuned in live. So City versus Leeds. This is I'm expecting this to be hot on the captaincy metric when we get there, but we've got Man City with a 2.18 NetxG and Leeds with 0.93. The FDR is even more aggressive. It's a
Mm-hmm.
4.4 for the attack at Man City, minus 3.2 for Leeds.
Wow.
It's not looking good. What about the shot goal predictor and the shots on target goal predictor? Is there any hope of a Leeds kind of win here? Can they do it? Can they survive relegation? Can they get 3 points to help the Arsenal?
I mean, do you know what? It's crazy to have about a 1 in 8 chance of 4 or more goals from Manchester City, according to the shot predictor. And I think one thing we're going to see with the FDR is a lot of the FDR results for this game week. There's a lot of disparity, so you'll see super high against super low, like this one, 4.4 to minus 3.2. And I think Mariner condensed the data or something like that. So kind of the extremes are popping a little bit. It's weird, but it's weird that the zonals are exactly the same. That's pretty surprising.
Yeah, I
But I
was going to say
mean,
they're exactly, yeah, both sides, they're exactly the same. Center, left, and right. It's all basically like free across the board for both teams, isn't it?
yeah, and that's strange. I have to kind of I can dig into that while we get into it a little bit more. But I mean, all of the matchups, right? 3.2 big chances. That one I would actually expect to have been higher. Three big chances is a lot, obviously, in one game, but given all the other numbers, you kind of expect that to be a little bit higher. Just under 6 shots on target, 10 shots in the box, and the headed chances is at 3, which is pretty decent as well. I mean, there's not much to dissect here unless we're talking about who starts, right?
I was going to
And
say,
what
it seems to all come down to, do any of these players get rested before Real Madrid? That's literally like the $1 million question, right? So I think tonight's lineup and the minutes they get tonight will be a key indicator. There
Mhm.
might be leaks because it is I think there's no 12:30 kickoff on Saturday, if I'm right. Let's have a quick
Right,
look.
it's a later start because it's a
Yeah,
5:30
deadline.
a.m. deadline instead of 3:30 a.m. deadline, which is
Yeah, I was gonna
nice.
say deadline's a couple hours later as well. So yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so I've only got 2 Man City players at the moment. I got Grealish and Haaland. I can't find it in me to get rid of Grealish at this stage. I think I've just got to hold him through and just hope he starts a few games. But I am a bit annoyed by that pick, especially after Bruno got his 11-pointer in the first leg, and now he's got another game to go. And obviously that was my replacement for Bruno like weeks ago. So I got some points since, but it is annoying seeing Bruno get 11 points. I'm really keen on Alvarez. So I've got a 3-5-2 at the moment. I've got Sam Greenwood as my like bench fodder, but I have enough money in the bank to go from Greenwood all the way up to Alvarez should I need to. So that is something I'm tempted by. I'm considering that. And I think I would need clarity that he starts. I don't know if I have it in me to make that transfer not knowing he starts. And tonight, again, will be a big thing, right? So I think if De Bruyne is completely out of the squad tonight and Alvarez plays again and plays like a lot of minutes, I'd be a bit worried. I don't know if you saw the comment from Pep where he kind of said Alvarez is too good to just keep sitting. And he said he's got to find a way to get him, De Bruyne, and Haaland all in the team at once. That's like the next evolution. It's like he needs to find a way to play all three together in the 11 because like Alvarez can't be benched. Like it's just not right.
The way has been staring him, and we've actually talked about this on the show since the beginning of the season. I thought Pep would do this much earlier. He hasn't yet. Alvarez has played at River Plate. He played a lot on the right. I'm surprised Alvarez hasn't just started on that right-hand side with Haaland in the middle, Grealish on the left, and De Bruyne in behind them, right? That's actually quite easily done if everybody's fit. But I think the case for Grealish in this matchup and in this fixture here is, I mean, I'm not sure how Sam Allardyce is going to set up. Is he going to go in a 4-4-2? I think against Bournemouth, Javi Gracia went in a back five or something like that. But Ayling played. If you have Grealish against Luke Ayling, he's going to destroy him. So I think Grealish is pretty appealing from a tactical perspective, even though it doesn't show up here in the zonal. And then hold on, I'm just seeing. And then Manchester United have, Manchester City have Everton next, and Seamus Coleman just went down, so it could be Ben Godfrey on that side. And Ben Godfrey's been roasted by people this season. I think Jack Grealish could have another field day against Ben Godfrey. So I'm quite encouraged about that.
So maybe if you own, it's almost like over management to now try and get rid or hit him out for a different City midfielder who we don't know the minutes of, right? Like a Mahrez or a Foden. Like, are there really any guarantees there?
Yeah, right, exactly. So I would hang on to him and have quite a bit of hope for at least the next 2 game weeks, and then they play Chelsea, and Reece James is out for the season. So it's like, I don't know. I think his matchups in the run-in are quite good. I'd hold on to.
I guess Grealish versus maybe Azpilicueta in a back four, even like it. You kind of want that, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you have Ayling, Godfrey, and Azpilicueta as his direct opponents in the next 3.
I guess it just depends on whether he starts, right? This is the thing. So Foden could play on the right wing ahead of Mahrez, but he could also play on the left wing ahead of Grealish. And I think it all comes down to we have to see tonight's minutes.
Yes.
I mean, that's what stresses me out. But I think you're right. At this point, I've made my bed with Grealish. We have 4 transfers left all season. Like, I can't be using it to sell one City mid for another City mid. If you don't own any, I think that's where Foden becomes quite exciting, where like you monitor the game tonight, you see if there's any news about him starting on the weekend. And if there's any news that he starts, you're like, okay, you know what? This is the guy I'm buying, because I just think he's way more explosive than you're going to get from Grealish. Like, I feel like Grealish hasn't got like many, like he had 2 double-digit hauls, right, a few weeks ago, but like that's it. Like, he doesn't double-digit haul often, so I think those were maybe more outliers. Whereas with Foden, I can see him getting you a 17-pointer. That guy can just get like a brace, a hat trick. Like, I don't see that from Grealish side. I see more assists.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think that's fair, but also more security. So maybe a higher floor, right? Lower ceiling type thing. But if we're looking like at transfers for this week, right? And let's just look at like general upgrades vis-a-vis the City players. So, a lot of like, you have Newcastle defenders against Arsenal, you have Brentford defenders against Liverpool, you have Liverpool defenders against Brentford, but they're at home, so maybe that's not so bad. But you know how Liverpool's defense have been recently. But even they're probably a whole.
Even United, right? They're away from home at West Ham.
Yeah, right. Even United. So upgrading one of those defenders in a tricky spot to Stones, right? Given the data here, versus upgrading, let's say, Andres Pereira to Foden, right? Versus upgrading like a striker of that similar striker to Julian Alvarez. How would you prioritize kind of those three?
That's a really good question. Yeah, that is a good question. I guess I'm very biased here. So like I refuse to get the Man City defender because I'd like to think they're gonna drop points and there's gonna be more twists and turns in the final Premier League title race. Fulham almost did me a favor there, but unfortunately Alvarez was too fucking incredible with that ball striking ability. I don't know how that ball dipped in, but what a fucking goal, honestly. Like the guy, and I just don't know what to say. And sorry to Combe as well. He mentioned that I reminded him of that Fulham result. Obviously, I think he's a Fulham fan, so sorry about that, mate. One thing I think is so I guess the kind of the socks on me, like the more kind of conservative style of player I might be normally, would go for the defender every time. But with me not being happy with my rank, I feel like Alvarez is the one I'd want. Like I just can't see a world in which that isn't an exciting pick. And but that's maybe coming from the fact that I already own a mid. Like I have Grealish. So if I only had Haaland now,
if you only had
Haaland plus a defender, right? So they might already have those two. Then it's like, okay, then they need a mid. And in that scenario, what I was saying is I wouldn't go Grealish at this point. I'd forget the floor of Grealish and I'd go for the ceiling of Foden. I think that's like if I had the mid spot open. But where I am, where I don't have the mid spot open, is straight up between Alvarez and a defender. And I just, for the life of me, I can't, like, I know Trippier's kept, like, I think he's returned once in, like, the last 10 game weeks, but I just can't bench him to bring in a City defender. Like, I'd rather get a City attacker. I don't know. What about you? I know Stones is one you've mentioned.
So I just really quickly, before he leaves, we have a new member. Thanks so much, Benjamin Lockwood. Really appreciate the support, man. And I just wanted to show really quick because he's got to run, but he just wanted to say hi and catch up later.
Thank you, Benjamin. Really appreciate the support, mate.
So I'm looking at this like say you only own Haaland with that, which I think is common, right? And if we look at them and we rank them, like for me, I'm a little bit biased as well. Like I've had my eye on Alvarez since the season began. I've been wanting him to start, and I've always thought he should start on that right-hand side. So I'm going to go there first. Even if the delta, say I have to sell Tony, so the delta from Tony to Alvarez may not be as big as, say, a defensive delta. So I would say Alvarez first, and then I guess maybe it's formation dependent. Like the other two are so close that it would be formation dependent. If I bring in Alvarez, I'm in a front three, so I'm not going to go to a midfield five. So then I would get Stones. But if I'm selling somebody like Kane to get to Alvarez, right? Then, and I don't know. I wouldn't want to play Henry away to Liverpool. Like if it's a Brentford defender, I would upgrade the defense.
Depends who your third defender is. Yeah, it's a big.
Yeah. So it would depend on that. But it's an interesting kind of thought.
The one I'm looking out for is I want to see what's happening with Nathan Ake because I feel like he could be a spicy one where everyone's kind of got their eyes on Stones. They feel like Ake's done for the season, but it sounds like he's basically back and he might even be in the team tonight. So Ake's one that I'm keeping an eye on because I just feel like he's someone who I'd be keen to own. Famous interviews from Pep, right? He said, like, I think the last thing he said about Ake before he benched him was along the lines of, Ake's unbenchable. He's so good. I have to play in every game. He's my best player this season. And then bang, bench, and then bang, injured. Oh, God.
Of course, but you know what Pep likes about Ake is his first touch. It's a progressive touch. It's always it's a slight diagonal left foot. It's always forward. He's looking to do something, and if it closes down, then he'll cut it back. Versus like it's like not not that Serbi style, right? Where like you'll have the center back or Steele, the goalkeeper, just step on it.
Yeah.
It's forward to draw that pressure, and that he's always had that touch of his forward is always progressive touch has always been really good. So
Yeah, so
I
he's
like
definitely
that.
one. I think the lineups will be out in like 20 minutes. So I'm sure we'll talk more about City when we
Yeah.
get to the captaincy metric. At this point, I can't imagine you're buying Leeds asset. Andy Martin, if you're listening, I don't think even you will buy a Leeds asset, but do let us know if you're considering it. If anyone has a Leeds asset, I think this is the week to sell. If you've still got Nonto, if he's still somehow there, this is the week he could become Alvarez potentially. Or you could start to go for your Newcastle striker and get them ready. I'm kind of glad. I almost went for Isaac last week, but now I feel like I'm glad I waited because I've got a bit more information to gather. And is it Wilson I want? Is it Isaac I want? Like, who's my captain in 36? I think there's still a lot up in the air. So we'll come back to the City debate once the lineups come out and once we get to the captaincy, I think. But for now, oh yeah. So Dom, good to see you, buddy, as well. Another one of our haulers, Dom Black Dragon.
Yeah. He does make a good point. City defenders like handing over consolation goals. It's true. They concede goals on very few and low percentage chances. It just happens to them. So that's true.
Yeah, they do. They kind of put me off a bit. Like Stone's got obviously goals in back-to-back games, but like I know he's their biggest goal threat in defense, but like how long is that sustainable for? Really, like I think you probably missed those goals now. Like I think that boat is gone.
Yeah, agree.
So yeah, this is an interesting one. I'm guessing there might still be some Hurricane owners out there. There's probably some people who still have Elise and Eze and the likes in their team, maybe even IU. But Zaha's come back into the fray, and it seems like everything's funneling through him. Ever since he arrived, got back straight back in, everyone goes straight back to him as the talisman. It's like nothing changed. Could I tempt you in a Zaha punt? That's the thing that everyone seems to be talking about on podcast this week. I know that James from Planet, he always has to deal with Suj, I think it is, who wants to put in an annual Zaha prop. Yeah, he's always putting in that Zaha prop, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, this one, like I think Spurs' number are a little depressed here because of the Palace goalkeeper metric. 0.7 is so. I mean, without that, Spurs would be at 1.77. I was doing a little bit of a deep dive on that, and it's away, right? Goalkeeper away, and I found that the reason that's so high is because the goalkeeper metric in NetxG takes account percentage of big chances saved, right? And in the last 6 away games, Palace have only faced one big chance, which is good for their defense, right? They're preventing big chances, and that one big chance, Johnstone saved it. So that brings that goalkeeper metric up quite high. So it's up to you to determine how much of an impact Johnstone will have on this game away. But I don't want any part of this game. I don't want any players. I don't want any defense. I don't want any offense. I don't want anything.
Yeah, no, I just don't know how many refunds a club can give. It's just it's been a terrible few weeks for them, obviously. But
do we have to refund the haulers for the time that we've spent talking about Spurs
Tottenham?
this
Yeah,
season?
I
think
feel like
maybe we
Spurs
do.
set precedents for us on that front. But it's nice to see Heung-min Son back in the goals over the last month or so. So I'm glad he started to, like recover a bit from probably like his worst season ever in the Premier League. But so that's good to see. But otherwise, I don't know. Like Kane still continues to get his points, right? But for me, I think we said this months ago, where I was like, that's the danger with Kane, because he consistently gets those 6 to 9 pointers. You just think, well, I'll just hold him. But like, it's not about like whether the striker you buy can match him. It's about what can you do if the striker you buy is half the fucking price, and you can then get 2 fantastic assets for that. So it's kind of like, I feel like my squad is way more balanced with him out of it, and I have no regret selling him personally. But there will be others out there who will live and die by him, right? But for me, it's just, this is not like, I do not want Spurs assets. I couldn't believe people were punting on like Spurs wingbacks on their free hit in game week 32, for example. Is I just think that's mental.
Owning Harry Kane is like eating McDonald's. It's gonna fill you up, and it'll always make you feel like shit.
Like you always get the points, but then you're kind of looking like, oh yeah, like you know, Isaac and these guys are basically getting similar points every week for half the price, and I could have had like KDB in my midfield instead of fucking Andreas Pereira with the money I saved. Or something.
Exactly.
That's the way I look at it. So I think for me, he's not one to go for. But I guess just before we move on, we might as well take this question now rather than at the Q&A, because then we don't need to come back to it. I'd rather not talk about Spurs for the rest of the episode, to be honest. So, so Nick Khan asks, is it time to consider Son as a punt? Only 6% owned, returns in 4 of his last 5 games. I guess the question is, do you feel that this Palace game, does this suit Son? Is it like a, surely fucking Tottenham are not going to be dominated by Palace and be counter-attacking with Son. Surely. At home as well. Like, surely not. Surely this is not a sunny game.
Yes. Yeah, this is a sunny game.
It is, yeah? That's why I asked you, because I want to see what your thoughts are from a tactical point of view.
2 words. Joel Ward. Joel Ward.
That guy is still fucking playing for Crystal Palace. I don't know how he's still around, mate.
He's still running around. He's so Son against Joel Ward. Here's the downside, right? That Anderson is a quality player, and Anderson's been covering for Joel Ward. He wasn't the problem in that crazy game against West Ham, which was I tweeted him like, I don't even understand. I didn't watch that game. I was looking at the stats and updating him like, I don't understand what's happening in this game. But Joel Ward is always a problem. So anybody facing Joel Ward is I would favor. So I think Son is an interesting punt. Like if you're going Kane to Alvarez, and then you go like Andreas to Son, I think that's quite sexy.
Yeah, no, that could work. Especially like it sounds like the rumors are that De Bruyne's not in the squad again. So I guess Son could be a placeholder. Have him for a couple of weeks. See whether you want De Bruyne in double 37 by then. See how it goes. Maybe even move to Bruno by then. Who knows? But the FDR doesn't fill me with confidence for Spurs with a minus 0.7 for attack is all, but it's not this game, right? It just screams to me like fucking 1-0 Palace. Like I don't know what Spurs are doing recently.
I mean, from the Palace perspective, I mean, you gotta love Saha against Pedro Porro, who's
well, he can't play in the back 4, right? And then they tried it for the first time at Newcastle. And then they subbed off some poor young kid after destroying his confidence and made him the scapegoat for like why the fuck they tried a back 4 in that game at St. James's. Like what the fuck they were thinking, God knows. But do you not worry for like the future of that squad where they've gone and invested in all these kind of like wing backs, and like now the next manager needs to like mold the team in his own shape, but he's like stuck with defenders who can only play wing back?
To be perfectly honest, I don't lose one wink of sleep over Spurs. I'm not worried at all. Sorry
to our Tottenham fans in the chat, but it is.
I do hope they turn it around because the league is better with a quality Spurs. So
you want to make it more interesting and
entertaining. Yeah. The loss of Spurs is a lot. Spurs and Chelsea competitiveness is a loss for the league and as a whole, in my opinion.
Sure. Let's go to the next game. Wolves versus Aston Villa. So there's some Watkins owners who are considering selling him for Alvarez this week. Or there's people who own both Watkins and a Newcastle striker, and they're probably benching their Newcastle striker to play Watkins. What are your thoughts on, I guess, this? Because the numbers do not look great for Aston Villa, really and truly. Like, obviously, like it's got 1 NetxG for Aston Villa versus 0.7 for Wolves. But on the FDR, it's like Mariners FDR just like totally disagrees. It's like the other way around. Like Wolves has 0.9 for attack. Villa has minus 1.8 for attack. So the NetxG and the FDR this week for this game, like it's the most polarizing one so far, I would say.
I mean, this is a fascinating. This maybe tactically the most fascinating game of the weekend. You have Lopetegui hosting Unai Emery, 2 Spanish tacticians. One in Unai Emery that's going to play his narrow 4-2-2-2, right? And he's going to send Alex Moreno up the left wing, and then you have Wolves that play this kind of like disruptive, like in the central midfield, they're disruptive, and then they want to break from the half spaces into the wings. So it's going to be this kind of like midfield battle, one trying to penetrate, and then the other one, when they get possession, trying to break wide. And I think that's, from a statistical perspective, it's showing that kind of tactical caginess. And so all of the metrics pretty much agree. I mean, NetxG likes Villa a little bit more. The FDR likes Wolves. It really doesn't like Villa, huh? I think that's I'm trying to see where
That's
you
the
know where
thing,
it is.
yeah. Yeah, I'm trying
It's
to
in
figure
the
out
shots
why
on
the
target.
FPL. Oh, shots
The
on target.
differentiator is the shots on target. Look at Villa, for example, 22% chance of a goal for the shots goal predictor, and that goes up to 27 for shots on target. Because when Villa hit, when they hit on target, they hit well, and that, I think that shots on target element maybe isn't measured in the FDR, and that's the only discrepancy. Other than and then Wolves have the more opportunity, more shots in the box, significantly more shots in the box. 9.8 predicted shots in the box for Wolves. If they had anybody that could finish, that would be really interesting, right? But they don't. They don't score goals. So you have one team that don't create many chances, but when they do, they hit. And you have another team that create more chances, or at least not chances, but create more shots, right? But don't score the shots that they create. And when you combine those things, you have this 0-0, 1-1, 1-0 in any direction kind of scenario.
No, that makes sense. I sold Watkins already, so like that's just gone for me. That's not a choice. What about we were talking about how the defense is so tough this week. If you're a Mings or Moreno owner, is there an opportunity here to play them over a Newcastle defender, like with the kind of the lack of points returns from someone like Trippier? Is this the week to just go for it and hope that Wolves? Because I know Wolves have been in good form recently, but they still have less goals than games played this season. Like they've not really been scoring much.
Yeah, and Wolves are kind of fighting for survival a little bit, and Villa's fighting for Europe, right?
So they both want something. Yeah,
They both want
actually
something.
a lot on the line in this game. Really,
Yeah. There's this is like a very underrated game in my opinion.
should be
There's a
quite
lot of alignment
entertaining.
for both
Actually,
teams. What's that?
it should be quite entertaining, just
Yeah.
especially from the tactical kind of chess match point of view between the managers. Did you say with both the Spanish managers as well? I wasn't I guess I wasn't banking on this game being one of the ones I'd look forward to watching this weekend, but you've kind of talked me into why it might be quite a entertaining one from a pure watch point of view. Like,
Exactly.
I don't care about FPL for this game. Just see how it goes. Obviously, I have my previous ties with Unai Emery as well, so.
Yeah, 100%. And that these are the awarenesses that open up from the FPL beach, Nemo. When don't
Just
have to
enjoy
care
the
about
Premier
this.
League again.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, enjoy some football. It's about to be over. It's like shit.
Shit, yeah, you're right. It is about to be over. Well, I think we're giving this game more airtime than most would have on an FPL pod, but
Yeah.
I think it was worth it just because you've reminded me and maybe some of the viewers that there are some interesting games, and just because we don't have assets in them shouldn't change that. I feel like with Premier League, I've noticed the lens with which we watch these games is so dictated by the FPL assets we own. Everything we want to see happen is like it's like some obscure shit. It's like, well, I want my I want my Watkins to get a penalty. I want him to miss it, and I want my Jose Sarr to save it. Then I want Watkins to score a rebound, and then I want an assist from Moreno, and then I want a Jose Sarr assist, and then I want it to be 2-2.
Yeah.
Like the kind of shit we come out with because of our FPL assets, I think we sometimes just forget that like so much is out of our hands once we pick the team. I don't think there's a fantasy sport out there which is less in your control than FPL.
Yeah, you just have
Nearly
to.
every other fantasy sport out there, there's some level of control in the kind of the consistent way players earn points for lots of 50 different metrics that get you points, right? In
Yeah.
FPL, it's like goal, assist, clean sheet. That's some random as fuck bonus. But
It's fantasy for dummies.
it is. It is. Like we said, it's made for the casuals, tailor made. So Liverpool versus Brentford. I think this is a really exciting one. A lot of us have obviously loaded up on them. They're in a, they're about to play the second game of the double this evening in about an hour's time. Are there any plans in your mind to kind of offload them? Or is it you still hold on to them and then maybe reassess in double 37 Because for me, like Salah's someone who, bar that penalty in the first game, I'm not sure I saw much from him. And part of me kind of wonders, could that be a De Bruyne? Could that be a Bruno Fernandes in double 37? So I think it's early to move on him yet, but I've got my eye on tonight's game and I want to kind of reassess what is Salah doing, because I'm not convinced that like he's the one I want to hold in 37 when the others double.
Yeah, I mean, in this match in particular, Tony would be my sacrifice for Alvarez if I went in that direction, and I don't feel entirely comfortable with that. Especially with the again, the zonals are exactly the same. I don't know if something went a little haywire in the data for the zonals, because I'm seeing a lot of them the same. I'm gonna check. I gotta check NetxG.
I was gonna say the odds don't make sense to you. It's just you're like, how can this work? Like,
yeah, exactly, it keeps happening every time I bring them up. I think the fact that the zonal, the left-sided zonal for Brentford opens up is good for Brentford. I think they'll be in their 3-5-2 against Liverpool, especially away. And I think that's, there's hope for Henry to maybe get an attacking return, but Liverpool at home are just their attack is just too much, and I think they should overrun Brentford in the end. Especially despite, again, the left zonal matchup saying 3.8 in the center, 3.0. I actually like Liverpool's central zonal matchup against Brentford, kind of like right in front of that back three. There's usually a pocket of space, so depending on who's going to start, I think that's an area of the field where Jota could take advantage of. Gakpo, maybe not so much. I think that's a better area for Jota, because Gakpo, what he does is he kind of like he is the trailing run, but he'll go past that line where Jota will kind of stop in front of the back line and ask for the ball there. Instead, if he pushes the back line, it's because he's looking for a header. So tactically, if Jota starts, I very much like Jota in this matchup. And Salah, I don't know. I'm worried. You can't sell him, right?
yeah, it just feels wild because like there isn't like, if anything, this week is like rolling free transfer territory in some ways with 2 doubles to come off the back of it. It's only really like the City players that you might be tempted by, but like, are you really going to do like Salah to Foden when Salah's on penalties and guaranteed minutes? And there's no Europe for them right now. Like, so yeah, I think like he's maybe one to keep monitoring for these next few games and keep an eye on in case he's one to move. But I think against Brentford at home, like Liverpool at Anfield is still, be one of the top 4 or 5 teams this season. And I think you just got to go with it and hope. But
and one thing for Liverpool, I mean, and Andy Robertson is a big problem. He's been a problem all season, I think. If you own Andy Robertson, you got to get rid.
So he's not starting tonight. So obviously we're 3 minutes till official lineups, but the rumors are that Edison is benched. No Edison, so 1 point in a double game week for Edison. Darwin starts. Tsimikas starts.
This is all yet to be confirmed from our perspective, right?
No. So I've looked on my phone and like they're not on the official lineup because that's obviously 2 minutes away. But like it's being confirmed by like Team News and Ticks and a few.
Robertson benching was obvious.
Yeah, like I think before this game week, I did warn a few people that like something felt off. Like obviously, if you needed to save the money, I was like, go Van Dijk. Yeah. Something just felt off to me about Robertson and Tsimikas kind of waiting there. I went Trent, thank God. But yeah, I just think it's wild because West Ham are throwing this fucking game, the bastards. They took points from Arsenal, and the rumors before the game was that West Ham were going to heavily rotate. And the only thing I've seen about West Ham so far is that Declan Rice doesn't start. So, like, they're clearly fucking rotating. Like, that rumor turns out to be true. They're just literally throwing the game in City's favor. So that is fucking frustrating.
Why?
I'm not really sure why they're resting everyone. Like, the fuck that's about, who knows? But
I'm not really sure why you guys just didn't beat them.
No, that's true too, but I just don't understand why they're resting everyone. It's like when Liverpool rested everyone against Chelsea just to play them against us. Like, the fuck, man? Like, why? Like, why do we have to go through this? But yeah, no, I think I blame the Southampton and West Ham game, as you said. I think those two are there where my issues lie. I don't think we should have needed to rely on that City game. Like, we should have relied on the games before. So I think I totally agree with you that why didn't we just beat fucking West Ham? But
just beat them, man. You just got to beat the people, beat the teams.
Podner saying if we were going on rumors, both Liverpool and Man City wouldn't have starting 11s tonight. I love that shit. But yeah, Jota on the bench is the other kind of thing. So obviously he came on. He was a late doubt for the last game, subbed on, got a yellow, was set for 0 points, probably could have got a red card, kicked someone in the head, scored a goal at the last minute, 10 seconds after Richardson's first Premier League goal for 60 million that he was signed for, one fucking goal in May. And then and then he got his goal, 4 points, and then he got injured. And Klopp's quote, did you hear it? He goes, yeah, he sat down really slowly. He was injured. I'm like, the fuck is that? But like, he's talking about the celebration where Jota sat down. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, that's the assessment of the injury, is that he sat down slowly. Like, what kind of fucking injury assessment is this? He's like, oh yeah, he's a doubt for this game too now. It's like,
he came into the match with not quite fully fit, right? So that's why he didn't start.
Yeah, but he only came on because they needed him. Now, my concern is, will they need him tonight? I don't think that they were more likely to need him against Spurs to get that winner than they are going to need him tonight. You would think Liverpool go the distance tonight and they don't need him.
Potentially, but then again, you have Darwin starting, who by the way is do a haul still. He's still do a haul.
He is. So it's Diaz, Salah, Darwin. Okay, there's the official front three. Have you seen? Obviously, Darwin doesn't really speak English, and Thiago is someone who would translate stuff for him on the pitch. But Thiago is now out for the rest of the season, I think. So I don't know how long he'll last on the pitch, Darwin, as you say, because I don't think anyone else on the team understands him, and he doesn't understand them.
And he's also not good. So
I wanted to give you the chance to get that in, but I just thought everyone who's been watching Net That Haul for a while knows about your opinion on Darwin Nunez. So I think we don't need to worry too much about that. But yeah, I think I guess the kind of short summary of this game is like, you probably keep and play all your Liverpool players, at least for now, and 37 is maybe a time when you look to jump off. In terms of Brentford, is this a good time to mention the Raya question and get it out the way? So like, if you had Kepa for Chelsea versus Raya away at Liverpool, are you going to play Kepa away at Bournemouth or Raya away at Liverpool? What are your thoughts on that from Nick Khan?
That's really tough. I want to say Raya, but it doesn't feel responsible to say it, and play Raya at Liverpool, because look at the shots on target model for Liverpool, right? 30% chance, 3 goals, 16% chance, 4 or more goals for the shots on target. So and so he's going to be littered with shots. Kepa's been much better at home this season, and he won't be littered with shots. So if you think that they're both going to concede, then logic dictates you go with Raya. If you think that Kepa actually has a shot at a clean sheet, then you go with Kepa.
I think personally I'd be going for Kepa here, because I just think he could get that clean sheet. I could see a 0-0 there. Like, as much as I said I think Bournemouth will win, I would not be shocked at a 0-0, 1-0 Chelsea, 1-0 Bournemouth. I don't see much happening in that game. This one, like, Raya could get save points, sure, but I expect Liverpool to absolutely slaughter them personally. Like, I'm looking at like 3 goals from Liverpool maybe. So I don't know if I'd really want to invest in a goalkeeper to start there. So I think you play Kepa and just pray. Just a few more things on the lineup news for anyone who's on podcast to timestamp this. We're at 7:03, just before the kickoff. So Robbo is confirmed benched as well. We've talked about Diaz, Salah, Darwin. Ortega starts with Aki. So Aki is back. So anyone who's looking to go there. And the City front four of Mahrez, Alvarez, Grealish, and Haaland. So anyone who went Alvarez this week, my lord, wow. Like, this kind of KDB injury has really played into your hands, I think.
Absolutely.
Cool. Let's go to Newcastle versus Arsenal at St. James's. I think this will be a very intense game. I'm actually really excited to see this compared to last year. I think we've come a long way since then, when they basically it's kind of bullied us off their pitch. But they were by far the better team last year when we met at this time of the year. Fingers crossed we can show those improvements we've made in this match and continue to focus on our own process. But the metrics on the NetxG are very similar, I would say. But the FDR really favors Newcastle attack, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and you can see why if Mariner. So for the podcast listeners, we have Newcastle with 4.4 attack on the FDR and Arsenal with negative 0.2. And if Mariner has, kind of condensed the data here, we have Arsenal's, you guys went 4 games winless.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's what we're seeing here. Even though you did score what, 2, 4, 7, 8 goals in those 4 games, right?
Yeah, a lot of goals.
Yeah. So I don't know why the attack FDR is so low,
Now, maybe the
unless
defense I can understand the minus
right.
4.4. And Newcastle have been banging goals, obviously, probably a bit inflated by those numbers against Spurs as well.
And Newcastle have been conceding as well. At least 1 goal in I'd have to count back quite a bit. So like it's about 10 matches or something like that. So I don't know why. I guess we'll have to hit Mariner up on Twitter to ask him why Arsenal's FDR is so low here. You can see why Newcastle's attack is high. I think NetxG has this right. It's super even. 1.89 for an Arsenal, 1.93 for Newcastle. All the chances and zonals, the creativity metric, the expected data metric, the shots metric, and the goalkeeper. It's all quite similar. The shots metric, the shot goal predictor, and the shots on target goal predictor is all similar. The zonals are exactly the same. Again, Nima.
Yeah, something's definitely up with the zonals for
Something's up
all
with
the matches. I
the
think. I think we can definitely conclude that there's no chance that many games would have the exact same zonals for both
No,
sides.
something went already there.
And surely, like, let's say the right wing was good for Arsenal, you'd then expect the left wing to be bad for Newcastle, for instance. Like they can't both be the exact same, like as good as each other, because
Yeah,
like if it's good for one of them, surely that wing is bad for the other. Unless it's just like a table tennis game where they're just going up and down the pitch against
it
each
could
other.
be that does happen. But look at the shots in the box for Newcastle. Predicted shots in the box, 12.3 predicted shots in the box, and that's probably a little skewed given Arsenal's recent fixtures um, against City, for example. I don't know who else would take that number of shots. But
Well, yeah, I think what I saw is so obviously there's Ali, I've forgotten what his handle is, but he's currently the world number one, I think, in FPL.
hmm,
And he put out a tweet recently where he was kind of like, I'm thinking of ignoring the double game week players and just starting to buy back Arsenal attackers for these final games.
hmm.
And I was like, oh, damn, that is first in the world making these. Like, I guess he's first in the world because he is playing different to the rest of us. Like, everyone told him to wildcard and that his team wasn't great a few weeks ago. And he ignored it and didn't wildcard and then had a massive haul and went back to first from third. So he just did his own thing. Like he obviously solicited the opinions and was like, no, I don't feel it. Like I'm just gonna
Yeah.
ignore you all. So massive credit to this guy to just ignoring all that noise. Like while being in that position, that kind of pressure. Imagine being third in the world and ignoring hundreds of people telling you to wildcard and then jumping to first by not listening to them. You would feel pretty vindicated. So maybe he's onto something, but I do think that for the last couple games, I think this week is a bit early. Like I just sold Saka now, so I wouldn't be looking to go back to Arsenal attackers just yet. But for the final 2 game weeks of the season, I would say, I think those are the games where that's where maybe like in game week 38, I could see myself punting again, Arsenal at home against Wolves, bring in an Arsenal player, and just kind of that's like our last chance to just go and get a differential. And by then, Arsenal attackers are going to be differentials.
And I mean, what do you think of, everybody's in on Isak. I don't know if they're bringing him in this week. That they probably roll a transfer, bring him in next week. But how do you feel about a player like Isak against you guys?
So the thing is, like, what I see, I thought that they'd play together more often, Isaac and Wilson, and they haven't generally. They're kind of like competing for the same spot. But last week, obviously, they subbed him on for Gordon quite early, Wilson, and Isaac moved to the wing, and it just felt like he was more a provider. He's got great fancy footwork. I think he's one of the best centre forward talents in terms of like young centre forward talents in the world. And I think we've all been so bedazzled by Haaland that we're not giving him enough kudos for like his kind of I think his his goals per like minute ratio, there's only like, I think, or even just like his like what is it, his XG per 90. I think only Haaland and Jesus have higher out of players who've played minutes this season.
Yeah.
So this is like a kid who's like got it all going for him. Like he would have fit into any of the top 6 clubs as their centre forward for like 5 years to go. I honestly think he's so great. So I don't want to be biased because I love him for what he will become. And with the kind of the minutes the way they are, and the fact that he does move to the wing when Wilson plays, and that's if he even stays on the pitch in the first place, Wilson just seems far more explosive. I know we call him the troll and all that, but like everyone was looking to get the ball to Wilson when he was on. Like no one was really looking to pass to Isaac. He was just like the provider on the wing. So I don't know. Like I think he's an incredible player, but now I'm kind of leaning towards like come game week, 36. I might just buy Wilson for 1 week and just captain him. Like honestly, like I don't know what your thoughts are. Like I love Isaac as a player. I just don't know if from an FPL point of view, do I really want to go with low expected minutes when he's not as explosive as Wilson?
Wait, the
But
lowest.
as in Wilson's got low expected minutes too.
Yeah.
At least he's explosive. Like, but I don't know if I want to invest the kind of the low expected minutes and then it's not explosive.
Wait, why? I don't understand why Isak has low expected minutes.
Well, it's just that because this was the only time I've seen them both play together for like a prolonged period, and that was just one half.
But Isak is a starter, right?
That's what everyone's led us to believe, yeah.
Well, I mean, but how have they led us to believe that?
Well, because Wilson's been injured all the time. I do wonder if Isaac
became. He hasn't been injured recently. He's just been on the bench. That's why
he does score off the bench every time too. You're right, but if you look at Wilson this season, the guy's on like 15 Premier League goals.
Right.
So like, if Isaac's been playing more than Wilson and he's got less goals than him, that's what I'm saying about the explosive part. Like, I just feel like on any given day, you don't know which one's going to start, and I don't think it's ever going to be both of them. And it's like
that's the narrative. That's not true, right? You always know who's going to start.
No, but because Isaac has been benched in every single midweek of every single double game with Newcastle.
So, well, not benched. That's rested, right? Because he's never had.
But that's what I'm saying. So 36 is a double. If he's been rested in every single midweek game, that means you're going to get one start from each of them, right? So whichever one you buy in 36,
I see what you're saying.
You maybe expect Isaac to start the first one, but all the other doubles Newcastle had, Wilson started the second game because it was quick succession.
But that's not true, is it? Wilson has only started one of the last ones.
No, but it's every double. So if you look at all the doubles, you see Wilson starts the second game in every double Newcastle have. Isaac never starts the 2 games in a double plus the following game because there's 3 games in a week, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you have 2 strikers of that caliber, I don't know why you would risk.
Well, they've only had one double.
They've had 2 so far, no? 29? Or was 29 the only one? No, there's so what happened? Oh, this wasn't a double. This was just the midweek game. So it wasn't a double, but they played game week 33 and 34, and that was all in 1 week, right? It was Saturday, Tuesday deadline, Saturday. Like, so again, he got rested though. So it's like, as in what I'm saying is, it's not about doubles, no. It's just whenever there's a midweek Premier League game,
right. I see what you're saying.
There's a game on both weekends. Wilson starts that midweek game.
It's like 1.5 and 1.5 kind of thing of the 2, right?
And then it's like, so if you know they're both for 1.5, it's like, where do you go? Because that's probably going to be your captain, whichever one you pick.
But and then you also have to keep that player moving forward, right? You don't want to make that transfer again. So
you say that, but I'd sell them after 36 for like.
Oh, really?
I just take a punt. Like I get like maybe like another attacker. So like I would potentially like, this sounds wild considering how much I shat on Chelsea earlier, but like a Chelsea striker, like for the double in 37, I would be tempted to go there, and then come 38, I'd be tempted to move off again and just take a 1 week punt.
Now you've just absolutely lost me.
Now, I'll tell you the reality. The real winners are the ones who didn't stupidly go and double up on like Newcastle defense and can buy both. So in an ideal world right now, I would have both of them in 36.
And who? With who would be your third forward?
Haaland,
Isaac, you have Haaland and the 2 Newcastle guys, and you wouldn't have like Jota. You wouldn't have.
I'll be selling Jota regardless. Like I only wanted him for this double plus the home fixture against Brentford. Yeah. So my only moves left for the season are that striker. It's like I've literally dead ended my third striker. I've gone 3-5-2, and Yotta's slot is like a different striker every week till the end of the season.
That's
Like
your
nothing else in my team is like changing for the rest of the year. So it's
got
like
it.
every week I need a new striker, and now I'm a bit like, ooh, if I don't buy Alvarez this week, I could roll, and then in 36 I could fuck off Botman, and I
Right.
could get both strikers in. So now I'm like, that's the kind of, in my mind, it's
But
like,
then
do
you're
I get
changing
Alvarez
structure,
now
right?
or one striker?
But then you're changing your whole structure to
You
get
say that, but I have like 4 mil in the bank with like the only reason I have this structure, right, is so that I don't have to choose who to bench because Greenwood is on my bench every week.
right.
But I will happily in 36 bench one of like March or Grealish to play the two like Newcastle strikers. Yeah. So I think that's kind of my thinking is if you don't already have two Newcastle players and you just have Trippier, I will be looking to go for that differential because I think most people will struggle to get there. And if they're both getting 1.5 a game,
yeah, and they're both in form. You can't argue with the form.
they're both banging goals, right?
They're both, yeah. I don't hate it, and especially with that development of Isak moving wide, like he did when he played in Spain. They do both fit in that team together. So yeah, that's an interesting shout.
So yeah, I think that's kind of my thinking. But I do feel that Newcastle are a very exciting team to be considering and thinking about. And this game against Arsenal will probably help us decide who we get because again, like depending on who starts and how many minutes they get in this game, that's going to shape a lot of narratives, right? I think everyone who went for Isak early last week, they're obviously going to push Isak. Those who don't have that slot fill, they're going to push Wilson potentially if they think Isak's already played loads of minutes before the double. So I think just be careful on the timeline and watch these games that Newcastle play in 35. Just watch how they do against Arsenal and make your own decision before looking at the timeline. Because on the timeline, everyone's got different agendas based on who they already own or if they've got the slot open. Everyone's going to frame it based on what works for their team, right?
Yeah, based on what they already have cooking, right? The one thing I will say tactically for Newcastle in this one, I wouldn't be surprised if Eddie Howe goes with Almiron and hitting that half space in behind Xhaka for you guys.
Yeah,
I think that could be an area of weakness, and something could come from there, and that could boost maybe the attacking potential of Trippier on that side.
That's why I'm playing him. Yeah.
So yeah, I think you still kind of have to play him.
I don't know if I can go and buy like a City defender, bench Trippier, and then watch him like get a return against Arsenal. I think that would just kill me too much.
That'd be too many daggers.
yeah, I can't deal with that. But good to see you tuning in as well, Ash, my man. Good to see you, brother. I imagine this is a lot of numbers for you right now. You're probably wondering what the fuck are these guys smoking, but it's so because when I went on the show, these guys are telling me like, dude, like what the fuck? Like these numbers are like a laser printed in your head. I think after doing this show for all these years, I feel like not like I was telling my colleague, they were like, what's the show like? I was very data heavy and stuff. And he was like, I was like, I'm not really like, I was like, I'm kind of like the vibes guy on the show, but like the other guys are like way better with the data. He was like, what do you mean? Like you're like some stats nerd. I was like, no, trust me. Like my knowledge of stats does not even come like to 10% of like the level of data we're talking about. He was like in shock. He thought I was like the elite tier of statistics models, but I was like, nah, bro. Yeah. Ash says he thought he was watching Countdown. Oh, I love it. All right, let's go to the next game. So where are we at? So 1 hour 13. So we got 42 minutes till kickoff. We're going to try and get us all out of here before then. I'm going to put the timestamp in. Cool. So West Ham versus Manchester United. It's another exciting match. What are your thoughts on kind of, I guess, firstly, I want to ask about United defense and whether you think that's something to go for because they've quietly in the background been keeping a lot of clean sheets over the last 6 to 7 game weeks. Is that something that would tempt you?
I hate that United have been keeping clean sheets over the last 6 or 7 game weeks because their defense just isn't very good. And it's shown here. Look, the metrics agree. West Ham over United on this one. 1.83 for NetxG versus 1.5 for West Ham. I mean, in NetxG versus 1.51 for United. And then the FDR follows suit here with the West Ham 2.1, United 1.1. Again, Nima, the zonals are the same.
So there's definitely, we can ignore the zonals.
So we need to do some digging and get those zonals updated. But remember, just a reminder that the zonals are baked into the creativity metric in NetxG. So if you look at the CRXG up there, 2.2 for United, 2.5 for West Ham, probably suggests that the zonals, That's like zonals and big chances. So probably suggest that the zonals slightly favor West Ham here. I'll look up when we get to like your perspective here. I'll look up which zonals are kind of lighting up there for West Ham. But it's kind of an even matchup. But I think West Ham is coming away with it with a 0.5 more big chances predicted, 3.3 versus 2 for West Ham versus 2.8 for United, and it shows that West Ham have been creating more big chances and converting them. And then the really big one, 3.6 headed matchup for West Ham, kind of like that could scream like a delivery from Cresswell or Ben Rahma, and any who's going to be there in the box to head it. Could be Antonio. He's been around lately. It could be Socek back in there, or even one of the defenders, Zuma. I know if Mariner were here, he'd give Voldemort a shout. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not too confident on any of the assets here. How do you see it?
I think I obviously have Rashford and Shaw. I will be starting Shaw in this game for lack of better options with Henry and Botman on my bench. I don't think I'll be looking to play either of those ahead of Luke Shaw. Obviously, Luke Shaw's been playing centre back, which does not feel great. But I know there's talk about how that benefits him from a kind of bonus points side of things, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. But this game, I expect United to win. I would go with like a 2-1 United. I'm not confident of a clean sheet here at all. I think Antonio's probably got enough to go after that kind of a very injured back line for United. What are your thoughts on Diego Dallo? Obviously, he's quite a cheap asset, and he got maximum bonus, I believe, in the last game. I think he got 9-pointer in the first leg of his double. So is that someone interesting? Someone you would look at? Like some people are talking about double United defense, for example, in the double, because they don't have like a midfield slot to get to Bruno Fernandes. They've already got Rashford. They don't really want Martial, who's a big minutes risk himself. Is it imperative to have triple United going into that double in 37? Because I would argue that their double in 37 looks a lot better than their double this week did. Like just from a pure fixtures point of view. Like I'll just tell you who they're playing. So they're playing
It's Bournemouth away and Chelsea at home.
Yeah, like that, Chelsea at home. God knows what that could be a cricket score, but
that's the and are Bournemouth going to be on the beach by then? Right. So it could be even a more enticing double than we think if Bournemouth are safe and I mean who knows? Chelsea might be fighting for their lives. So sorry, Nick.
So interestingly, Nick says Rice, Aguerd, and Souček are all out with an illness. See if they're back in time for this game against So I think, Nick, that's what they call a fake illness, so that the Premier League doesn't dock them for fielding a really weak team, because you're not allowed to do that in the Prem. And teams who do it get punished and investigated for fielding really shit teams.
And the only reason they're doing it is to fuck with Arsenal. We know that.
They're just upset that Declan Rice might come to us, but no, who knows? We'll see. I'm never going to get tied down to any players again after the Mudryk saga. I realize now, until a player is holding the shirt, they're not your fucking player. Don't trust anyone.
And maybe you don't want that player anyway. Maybe it wasn't the right player to begin with. Maybe it's better you guys didn't get Mudryk and went Trossard.
Yeah. I think when you look back on it, like Trossard does seem to fit very well with the Premier League proven experience. Ash asks, XG is good, right? So I mean, this is this is going to really blow your mind, but this isn't even XG. It's NetxG, which involves like a load of other numbers from here, as you can see, about the chances created, the zonal data for which side of the pitch, the shot. It even includes the goalkeeper's shot prevention stats to take away from the other team's NetxG. Like, honestly, like this model probably takes how many hours a week to update with the latest data? Like, probably like the algorithm has to run for at least 5 to 10 hours. It is definitely a lot of work to get these numbers out, that's for sure. But we hope you guys enjoy the fresh and unique take on the FPL game that I don't think anyone else digs into to this level. But the best part really isn't the data, Ash. It's that Gabe is a proper tactician, and he has been telling us all through the episode about how the managers are going to go after each other, how the chess matches are going to unfold. That's the more exciting part, I think. Good to see you, Travis, as well. Thanks for tuning in, buddy. Thank you for the nice words. He has a question which I think is worth answering now, so we don't come back to it in the Q&A later. He asks about Lindelof and whether he's an option. He's come in, been a revelation at just the right time. Seems nailed till Varane comes back. I believe he's like 4.3 million or less. He's very cheap. That could be my Botman escape. If I want to get double Newcastle attack, right, you might see me in 36 do Botman to Lindelof, bench Lindelof for the double in 37, and then bring in my 2 Newcastle strikers. just take a -4, do 3 moves, bring in Isaac Wilson and Lindelof, something like that. Maybe Dallo if I don't trust Lindelof as much. I think I probably prefer Dallo if money isn't a problem, to be perfectly honest. I just rate Dallo's delivery a lot more than Lindelof overall.
And I mean, Lindelof, I thought, he came in. He had a great game defensively, and I think he does strengthen their defense. The uncertainty of Varane's comeback and I think would put me off. And then I would also want the attacking kind of impetus and the bonus points that come with it. So I think Dalot is actually really important to United attack. And when they don't have Dalot, their dynamism up front suffers. They're a little bit more direct. So I really like the prospects of Dalot. So I think he would be a fine pick. And Podna mentioned in the chat that United do have the most clean sheets this season. So it's true. It's fair. It's not that they're bad, but they've also conceded more goals than Chelsea. So it's not that they're good either. It's like that middle of the road, maybe not as impact.
But they're getting a lot of clean sheets. Right now. I think the thing with United is, right, they've kept a lot of clean sheets, and that is true. But then they have had some horrendous defeats. We're talking like multiple games where they're holding 6, 7 goals, 5 goals. Like, it's happened so many times this season. That's probably where that number's getting inflated, right? The goals conceded.
They conceded some of these big early on and stuff like that.
Like, like 6-3 versus City. Like there's been a lot, 7-0 versus Liverpool. Like there have been some games where they are just racking up those goals conceded numbers. But generally against the lower, well, I guess not lower, but the weaker opposition, you could argue, I think they're pretty solid.
Yeah, especially now, and they're much different now than they were at the beginning of the season, right? Where Ten Hag is just kind of like instilling his vision, and now it's starting to click a little more. So I think they're definitely improving, and they're not bad picks at all. But I would look for just a little bit more of a boost in my transfers, I think.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I guess any love for if people own West Ham assets, would they hold on to them for this fixture? With a 1.83 NetxG with a 2.1 FDR for attack. If you're a Bowen owner, if you're an Antonio owner, is this the week to keep them? Like, people might be tempted to move them onto a City mid or a City striker. Do you just kind of keep them for this fixture and expect goals from both sides?
No, I would go for upside.
Yeah, you move on. All right, fair enough. This game, we are literally not going to even spend more than 2 minutes on, because I just don't think it. I don't know what else to say apart from, obviously, for podcast listeners' benefit, it's Fulham versus Leicester. I don't know how Leicester are even close to the relegation zone with the kind of squad of players they have, but it shows you that any game is not easy in this league these days. But what are your thoughts here? Because people accused Fulham of being on the beach recently, didn't they? And the manager wasn't having it.
I mean, I think the loss of Tim Ream is a big deal for Fulham, and they could be a team to attack these coming weeks. So, but I would also equally not be investing in Leicester. I mean,
what about Maddison owners? Is now the time to finally get rid?
Man, you're a month late.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know how he's still there. Like, I know he was on some free hits and stuff in the blank. He's obviously survived some teams. He had good doubles in 29 even, he's kind of just survived and got through all the way till now. But I just think if you've got Leicester assets, time to go. Just a shout out to Daniel Iverson though. Like, he had a phenomenal game for Leicester last game, and the sheer amount of saves the guy was making, I don't think Danny Ward's getting that spot back for the rest of the season. That's for sure.
I mean, it took me back to the beginning of the season when Everson was obviously the better goalkeeper. Danny Ward was just an absolute disaster. And I started the season with Everson. He's like, well, obviously, fucking Frogers is going to choose the better goalkeeper. And now he goes with Ward. And now people are like, oh, look, Everson's actually not not terrible, not a disaster. I'm like, damn it, I lost like a 0.2 in value on Everson at the beginning of the season. He had a great game, even being scored on as much as he was. So kudos to him. No interest in this match whatsoever from an FPL perspective.
I think we go, and obviously Andreas Pereira is now out for the season too, so he's kind of also another issue. And I know some Castagna owners out there. I guess if you had Castagna, you could argue that maybe
it could be a
you
fine
could
start
play him
actually.
this week. Yeah, like he could be an interesting shout over one of the worst kind of matchups this week. But beyond that, I don't think I'd be looking at any of these assets. All right, let's go to Brighton versus Everton. There's a bit more of an interesting one. See, Brighton still have like a couple more doubles to go. They got the double in 36 and 37. We saw them get their rest. Obviously, McAllister, Mitoma, all these guys got rested last game. Do we think that's it from a rest point of view? Like now they just kind of try and compete for Europe and play the best 11 every week, or have the likes of Encisco and these guys come in and I don't even know how you say the other guy's name. The number 10, was it Burnett or something? There's a couple of these guys who've come into the team and they look great, but are they really going to take the spots of the established starting 11? I don't think they will, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on those players.
Buonanotte.
Buonanotte.
Buonanotte, yes.
Buonanotte and Cisco. Like, there's some exciting, the amount of young, exciting attackers that they have. Haven't they just gone and signed Ja Pedro as well?
Yeah.
For next year. They've already signed. They've started their business before they sell players, so people can't hold them hostage to high transfer buys because they then know how much they sold their players for. So they've already built the team for next year out. Like fucking hell.
Podna says that Brighton are going to relegate Everton. He might be right about that. Julio Enciso he's played a couple of times this season and he's always impressed. A 19-year-old Paraguayan. He's a 19-year-old, so these are very much young players that they're grooming. So I don't think that this means a rotation, but I think this will give De Zerbi confidence that he can maybe give his players rest at 70 minutes, for example, and give these players the last 20 minutes because they can do a job. We mentioned this earlier, but you can't look past, I think, Kaoru Mitoma up against Ben Godfrey, right on that side, and I think it. I have high hopes for Mitoma. Just to go over the numbers here for the podcast listeners: NetxG 1.96 for Brighton, an even 1.0 for Everton. The FDR is much more polarized here: 4.6 for Brighton, minus 2.2 for Everton. We're looking at the matchups. Big chances. Brighton have 3.2 big chances predicted, 7.3 shots in the box, shots on target, and 13 shots in the box. You're looking at 13 shots in the box. Mitoma has to be in your thinking. And I think just look at the creativity metric, which indicates probably pops up on the zonals, that same side, 3.0 for the creativity metric. This is all in on Brighton.
I'm playing all my Brighton players this week. Thank God Jason still got his place back. I was pretty nervous going into the doubles, wondering whether he was going to keep his place or not, having come back from injury.
I never wondered that. I never understood why people were wondering. He made his decision. There's no Robert Sanchez has a good game, so now there's a controversy. When he had announced who the starter was, it's like, look, he took 6 months. He came to a final decision. It's Steele. Oh, here's one good cup game. Now it's not Steele. That's.
I remember you weren't as concerned. I do remember that. No. Let's take this question from Nick now, because it's related. So, do you think McAllister to Mitoma is a lateral move? McAllister's been playing further back lately. Does this depend on Veltman and Gross? Because obviously, if Veltman's out, that kind of fucks everything up. Because then Gross goes to the wing back, and then you've got McAllister drops deep. Whereas if Veltman plays, then maybe Gross plays the deep midfield role. McAllister goes further forward. So, is it very much dependent on Veltman to some extent?
I think it is and it isn't. It is in the sense your starting 11. Without Veltman, then McAllister is going to move back. That's just what De Zerbi's decided is going to happen, right? But it also doesn't only depend on Feltman, because when rotation comes in, right? When you play, when Gilmore comes in or Enciso comes in, when these players that can play at the 10, young players that Sebi wants to get involved. I mean, Enciso can play wide as well, but he can also play at the 10. Then in that rotation, I feel like McAllister could be moved back. So I don't see it as a lateral move. I think going McAllister to Mitoma is an upgrade, but I do think it's a luxury move. I think you can probably have greater impact in somewhere else, in a different move.
Yeah, I think overall, the fact that McAllister's on penalties, that's enough for me to not want to make that move. And it's not like Mitoma's exactly been pulling trees himself. Most of us have been benching March over Mitoma for like weeks or months, and every time March gets some random ass like 2-yard assist, some shit shot that, really weak shot that the goalkeeper saves and he fucking spills it and it's an assist, and fucking corner and it's an assist, and it's like, and Mitoma was supposed to be the one with the massive ceiling, and I played him every fucking week, and March got all these assists that Mitoma didn't. So yeah, I just think like with those guys, like I can't see a world in which I would be selling a penalty taker for such an attacking team wherever he plays on the pitch. I think there's other issues to deal with in your team, probably, or more upside or expected gain from maybe some other moves. You just know that the moment you sell him, that penalty's coming, mate. I just know it. Just know it.
Yeah, would we be so inclined to sell him if he got a hat trick of penalties against Spurs like he should have?
Yeah. Mitoma's foot got stepped on as well. Do you remember that? To get the penalty that then they later said should have been given as a penalty. Yeah.
I'd be top 50K if he got the hat trick that he should.
There was a few incidents in that game. Brighton have had a lot of apologies from the Premier League this season. They might have been top 4 without those apologies and with the correct decisions, but
yeah, they should be paid reparations, like whatever the difference in money is from their ultimate standing to top 4. They should just get it.
Give them some fucking remunerations or whatever it's called. Yeah, like give these guys some like they are owed money. That's all I know.
Yeah.
Well, let's go to the last game of Gameweek 35, and then we will do a quick look at the summary, and we can go to the captaincy metric. So, Forest versus Southampton, a proper relegation thriller here. I'm just trying to think who anyone owns from these teams. I'm just thinking, I get Brennan Johnson. Like some might still have him. Is there anyone? Like, I'm just thinking like Shea Adams. Like who could you possibly? I don't think there's much to say about this game, really, is there? Because
no, this is one for the pure watch and for the relegation fight, and just sit back, and you don't watch it for the football. You don't watch it. You just watch it for the vibes. It's the relegation scrappy survival vibes. So enjoy it. Nothing to say from an FPL perspective.
Yeah, and I think if the podcast listeners want to see the metrics for this one, we're not going to read them all out. I think just come to the 1 hour 32 timestamp and have a look on the screen. It's just a sea of red, basically. Just does not look like an exciting game to me. Maybe if you support one of the clubs and you're obviously hoping to not get relegated, great. But I feel like Southampton could go on to win every game they have left and still get relegated. So I think it's too little, too late, maybe for them.
I feel like if you're a supporter of one of these clubs, you probably lost out all hope on survival. They're probably both going to get relegated, unfortunately, and maybe not unfortunately. I think Southampton have a young enough roster to where relegation could do them some good if they can keep some of those young players. Obviously, they won't keep Ward-Prowse or like some of the other ones, but there are some young players or Lavia, they won't keep them. But there's some young players that could
even
really
Bella Kotchup, isn't it? And these guys, like, there's some really. I do feel that Southampton's they're underrated in the sense that they are the youngest squad overall. I think in the Prem, they're even younger than Arsenal. And I think if they did get relegated, which seems very likely now, I could imagine them bouncing straight back from the Championship and like really those young players really like getting blooded in the Championship and coming back again. So I think there's some good times ahead for Southampton in the future. It's just they may have to go through some pain first. All right, let's see. I'm just praying the next slide is a summary and not the captaincy metric. Okay, thank God for that. So this is the Gameweek 35 matchup summary. 1 hour 34 if you're on pod and you just want to have a quick look and screenshot it, or like see all the games that we've discussed so far in one place. guess, are there any standouts that we want to call out? Maybe the top 2 or 3 from an attacking point of view and defending point of view.
I mean, I think what we're seeing here for the FDR is the polarization, right? So we have kind of a top 3 with a little bit of a trailing 4, and the top 3 are from the best FDR is 4.6 for Brighton. Then you have 4.4 for Man City and 4.4 for Newcastle against Arsenal, which is interesting. Then Liverpool home to Brentford, you have it at 3.4, and the rest are really quite neutral or poor matchups, according to the FDR. And then similar counterpoint there for the defensive side. The NetxG numbers there, that snapshot was taken before the numbers were updated. Mm-hmm. So I did have a snapshot of the NetxG numbers, but we saw them. They're basically going to be the same teams. I don't think we really need to go over them.
Yeah. I guess we've covered them in the individual matchups, haven't we?
Yeah. What we do have here, thankfully, is the correct zonals.
That's true. They all look accurate now.
So here we go with the zonals. Some standouts. Left hand side for Brentford and Brighton, both pop up at 3.8. Another 3.8 on the left-hand side, interestingly, is Everton against Brighton on that left-hand side. And then Liverpool, 3.8 on the left. The central matchups, Arsenal, 4.5 down the center against Newcastle. So are we looking Gabriel Jesus or maybe one of the half-space operators like Odegaard? He got his brace. Of course,
what a return from him.
He gets his brace, of course. Yeah. 4.9. So the joint best zonal matchups are for Brighton and Everton down the center this week. 4.9. So I don't.
Calvert-Lewin, the return of Calvert-Lewin.
Hold on.
Maybe
that's the thing being repeated. They're still being repeated. Look at Everton and Brighton. It's the same. So let's forget about the zonals. So we'll scratch the zonals for this week. We'll fix them and have them back for you guys next week.
It's just shots in the box though, like sort of 13 for Brighton, like a kind of game week high. We did have 12.3 for Newcastle, as you mentioned, against Arsenal. We have 10 for Man City home to Leeds. We have 10.3 West Ham against United. Damn. 9.8 Wolves against Villa. So yeah, there's definitely some interesting ones here. Headed matchups. Again, West Ham against United, maybe an Antonio shout there, 3.6. And then you got Haaland's just obviously always going to be there, free for the headed matchup for Man City. And then Wolves, 2.7. So those are really the only headed matchups to write home about, I would say.
So really quickly, you can combine the headed matchups with the shots in the box. If both of those light up, then they strengthen. The headed matchups are strengthened because you have a high likelihood of shots in the box, which a headed matchup would be a shot in the box. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's quite positive for West Ham, and again, cast further shade on United defense for this game week.
It does. In terms of just shots on target, you got Brighton at 7.3. You got the one that I kind of we've not really called them out as an amazing matchup this week, but you got Liverpool at 6.2, which is the second highest of the week for shots on target. So again, that could be, another home game at Anfield against Brentford. You would think that Liverpool could do some serious damage, and whoever plays on that left wing, hopefully it's finally Jota, because honestly, I can't believe it. Double and the guy fucking doesn't start either game. Fantastic news. Cool. So let's put the jingle for the captaincy metric real quick. And then when we come back in 3 seconds, you will see who the winner of the captaincy metric is for game week 35. No surprise there, with Haaland on 92 at the top, with De Bruyne just behind him on 80. Grealish, who we were discussing earlier, is in at third on 88. Salah on 86. Rashford joint on 86. Bit of a drop down to March on 80. And then kind of like from there on in, they're all below 80. But so I don't really see any of the other City mids here for one. I imagine the minutes doesn't help them with the likes of Foden or Mahrez, but maybe Mahrez is even just like Mariners just still so angry at him from last season. Maybe he just actively excludes him. But it doesn't seem like it's the kind of week to go against Man City home to Leeds, does it? It's just if you heard that Haaland didn't start and you heard Alvarez did start, the question is it a buy and don't captain, or is it a buy and captain? That's
What?
my question for you, Alvarez. So if you heard Haaland didn't start, but Alvarez did, is he just a buy and don't captain, or is he a buy and captain for you?
Buy and captain for me. Not looking anywhere else. I mean, Holland is at the top, right, with 92.
Mm.
And that's with an average minutes of 59, 59 minutes. That's the data. If you bump that up to like, how long do you think Alvarez will play? Like
Probably
90?
that kind of
Oh,
minutes
90.
if he starts, yeah, maybe,
He
yeah.
starts, he'll probably at least 80. Give him another 30 minutes there. I mean, if you give Holland another 30 minutes there, he's going way over 100, whereas everybody else is below 90. so I think that does elevate Alvarez if it turns out he's going to be alone up top.
Yeah, I think that is a bit of a crazy one in terms of just the average minutes, and he's still that high up on the metric despite the kind of lower minutes. But I guess that's what we've seen all season, right? The guy's like looking to break every record Premier League goal scorers have ever held. Pep keeps subbing him off so he stays hungry and doesn't just break every record in world football by 22. So otherwise he might have nothing to play for. So that's just craziness. How soon after is their game against your boys Madrid after this Leeds game? Because if they're playing, I'm just thinking, what day are they playing? So they play Leeds on this Saturday? Yeah, they play at 3 p.m. on Saturday. And then when do they play Madrid? On the Tuesday. The Saturday to Tuesday.
Saturday, Tuesday.
And then I guess we see how many minutes Haaland and Alvarez get tonight as well. So tonight's minutes.
And it's away.
It's at Madrid.
Yeah.
It's at Madrid. Oh, shit. So
90 minutes for Bernabeu is a long time, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah. At the Bernabeu. Are there many English teams that have ever won at the Bernabeu in the Champions League? Like maybe a couple times ever?
Yeah, not many.
Like a handful of times?
Yeah.
Ever? Like in the history of Champions League? Yeah, I don't recall many English teams going there and doing it, but I'm sure that your experience in that competition might be enough. But you never know. This City team right now, they seem to have kind of hit top gear and absolute perfection right at the part of the season where it matters most. It's like they've just been building up, and they've looked way better since the World Cup, and they've just slowly got to this point where now they look frightful. And they just look so frightful.
I think they're going to hit us the same way they hit you guys, and we suffer from that long ball. If Haaland is,
because they never used to do that last season, right? But they've got new ways to play now. Fucking hell. They brought in this 6'7" Terminator as well. Like Jesus Christ. I guess maybe that heats me up for Alvarez more, because do you really need to give Haaland a start against Leeds at home if you're then more likely to bench Alvarez in the Champions League anyway?
No, so Haaland is going to start.
I guess has he not started a game that he's been fit for? It's not really,
no,
right?
He's going to start the games.
And he starts until they're winning by 3 goals. And then
exactly. Pep is like, you have 60 minutes to get your brace or whatever, and then I'm pulling you so and they'll be motivated.
I love it. All right, let's go to the Q&A, I think, so people can go watch the matches kicking off in the next 10 minutes or so. Quick thank you to the haulers first, and then we'll come to the questions we've started in the live chat. So if you have any final questions for Gameweek 35, please do get them in, and we'll come to them in a moment. So thank you to our super haulers on YouTube: Harbour Boy, Daddy Bot, Greenback Golf, Tahar, and FPL Robbie. Then we have our haulers on YouTube: Harry Not Kane, Tursks, Antonis, Salad Samurai, Kevin Rose, William, Catherine, Dom, Claire, FPL DG Boy, Akshay, C Hunt, Lindsay, Devindra Raj, FF Casuals Pod, Tom Gorish, Blonde, S. Scottism, FPL Teacher, Oscar Arias, Donny FPL, FPL Mike Halpin, Podner, FPL Craig, Dread FPL, Sebastian Koo, and Neil. And then our Patreons: Elron, Lucy Ann, Tom, and FPL California. So thank you all for your support. We obviously have our new member from today as well. Just a quick thank you. I'm just trying to find where that was in the chat. There we go. Benjamin Lockwood, thank you for becoming a hauler on YouTube. Do DM me on Twitter if you have any issues joining our little Discord community where we just kind of share all the metrics, put all the data in there so you can look back at it before the deadline and make any 50-50 calls without having to go through the whole YouTube show. And obviously, as always, this will always remain free and all the content will be available each week for everyone. But if you do want to support us and help us improve the content going into next season, we would always appreciate your membership either on YouTube or on Patreon. But other than that, I'm going to go to the Q&A now. There is no mini league update because the game week is still live. But let's go to the first couple of questions from the show that I started. So this is, I guess, Andrew asked about Phil Foden is the spiciest of spices. Who will join the train? I can make a stop for someone. So we've talked about this. And I think after looking at the kind of the zonals and just generally, like even the captaincy metric for 35, as a Grealish owner, I will not be joining your train, sadly. I do still stand by what I said that if I didn't own Grealish already and that midfield slot was open to buy this week, I would be tempted by Foden over Grealish overall. But as it stands, as a Grealish owner, no chance I'm doing City mid to City mid as one of my final 4 transfers of the year. This one can be for you. So Travis McKill, do you agree that Wan-Bissaka's form will have a negative effect on Dallow's playing time once Varane returns? Dallow is the best bonus points option, but if Shaw moves back to left back, that is something I had not considered, and that is quite thought-provoking because I'm not sure how far off Varane really is, and I don't think his season has ended the way that Martinez's has, right?
Yeah, no, it hasn't ended, and you have to think. I think it's a great question by Travis, but when we look at who United have coming up, right? They have so they have West Ham, right, in 35. Ben Rahma. You're gonna need the 1v1 defender. So yeah, it could be Wan-Bissaka instead of Dalot in that one. Against Wolves, maybe you'll need more attacking impetus. So Dalot would be a good option then in 36. Home versus Wolves. Away to Bournemouth, Dalot again would probably be used. Then you have Chelsea and Fulham, both at home, both probably Dalot games. I would imagine. So yeah, I don't know, but just the fact that we're actually talking about it says there is a risk. So I think it's a great point to bring up. And if you go Dalot, you're going for the upside in the bonus points. If you want to play it safe, then you get the center back. But that it definitely would not be for me. The center back would not be for me, and I think Dalot's upside is worth it. Because you can bench him in the matchups,
because realistically, you just want him for that double. So as long as you're confident that if Varane isn't close to being back yet by then, is he really going to be thrown straight back into starting? So it's one to keep an eye on, I think. 2 questions from Elron. So first one is bench Isaac for Alvarez this week. So I think that's kind of like what I would be looking to do personally, as long as you have the feeling that Alvarez starts. I think a lot of people own Watkins and Isaac, and this week they're looking to play Watkins over Isaac and roll their transfer if they don't want to buy Alvarez. So I think all the models kind of would probably tend to point towards Watkins over Isaac as well. Alvarez is a bit more difficult because he isn't kind of nailed on penalties like Watkins is. So I'm more comfortable telling you Watkins over Isaac than I am Alvarez over Isaac. But, realistically, if you think Alvarez starts, I don't see a world in which you would not play him home to Leeds over Isaac playing against Arsenal. I just don't it. Just seems on paper, it seems like such a straightforward decision. It doesn't always play out like that, but I always ask, who would you be more angry that you lost points on? So it's such a ridiculous concept, I know, but for me, I want to enjoy the game week. And if I bench Isaac and he got 8 points and Alvarez blanked, I would still be happy with my decision-making process and not beat myself up too much. But if I play, if I bench Alvarez and play Isaac and it's the other way around, then Alvarez hauls on my bench, I'll be pissed at myself for benching Alvarez home to Leeds. So I think it's just, I make my decision based on what will I be most annoyed about and whose points on the bench will really ruin my game week. So for me, it's.
And I would look to bench someone else if you can, because remember that central matchup for Isak looks quite nice.
So he also asks, Elron asks, Pep or a young Alec Ferguson? Joseph for me.
Yeah, Joseph.
I've seen this recently. People arguing over who changed the Premier League football more and stuff. It's
I
tough
mean,
one.
I think it's just a question of style. Like I was a huge, I was a United fan kind of growing up, but kind of from afar in Venezuela. But it was never really my style. The style never spoke to me. Like the wide wingers, the getting the ball in, like that's not how I play. So I would favor Pep, but I think this is just a question of personal preference and style.
I guess there's a debate, isn't there, that many credit Ferguson with like being the guy who kind of brought in the concept of having big squads and rotating players for minutes and sharing minutes. Like that was something he brought to the league,
Yeah,
which
that was
before
going to happen anyway with the fixture congestion.
but
So
here's what I mean. So imagine, like, are you really gonna say that guy was better because he used more players, or are you gonna say the super tactician was better? I know which one I would pick, and I'm sorry if you think that's biased, my fellow United friends, but just my thoughts. Asad Ali, good to see you, buddy. He asks best City trio: Haaland, and then obviously he's in there anyway, and then Alvarez, Foden, Grealish. So I guess he's going for triple attack here. I would tend to agree if you can fit that in. We've just said how the defense is a bit cagey. They like to concede a goal here and there, regardless of how many they score. And God knows who will actually play those games. So yes, they have a volume of games to come, but tonight Akanji is benched, Aki's back, Edison's benched. It's just a total shit show there. So I think triple attack, I'd agree. But if you could only pick two more players between Alvarez, Foden, and Grealish, from those three, who would be the two you pick?
Alvarez and Grealish for me.
Me too. Cool. Sebastian Ku, should I roll the transfer this week and bring in Isaac and Wilson on double game week 36? So this is something I really want to do, but I can't do if I move for Alvarez this week, because then I'm just booking in like a massive hit. So my question is, do you already have two Newcastle? Because if you don't, I would just bring in Alvarez this week and then take a -4 next week and get both the strikers. For me, I can't do that because I already own Botman. So I need to already take the -4 to get to double Newcastle attack, even if I roll. So I can't be doing -4 with 4 weeks to go. So I do have your question, Hunt, C Hunt. We have in Discord. I was going to come to this as the last question of the show. So this is going to be it. And then we're out of here. So is Bruno Fernandes necessary for the upcoming double plus Fulham and Wolves at home, as opposed to double defense? And I think that's a really good question, because it's similar to why Travis brought up that stuff around the United defense, just to make that conversation more interesting. So this is where it comes down to for me, right? It's kind of like, do you in 37, do you move Salah onto like a Bruno, and then like someone like me, I've got Shaw and Rashford, so Bruno, that's it, he's the third slot, you're done. Or do you go to KDB and then get a City defender or a United defender? So I think that's the way. I don't think it's as simple as like Bruno on his own, I would say. I think it's like, what would the impact of having Bruno mean to you? So now, if you already own Bruno, I don't know if I'd be looking to sell in any hurry.
I think at this point you hold, right? You hold
I think it's
Bruno.
a question of if you're buying. Like for me, I might buy in 37. And because I might, I'm not going to buy a second United defender to lock myself out of that option come 37. If you
Agreed.
own Bruno, I think I would sit, I would wait, and I would hold. Maybe in 38, you punt him to someone else for 1 week. But I think if you already own him, mate, he's got 11 points so far this game week. God knows what he's going to end on, probably 20. But so I don't know if you already have him, I don't think I would move him on. I don't think it's about being essential. It's just more that, who are you going to go to? Like, I guess, like, De Bruyne is not in the squad for 2 games in a row. Like, he's not even there as an option to move to against Leeds at home. I wouldn't want to be taking that risk with Madrid coming up, and like, I think Bruno, with no other games apart from the FA Cup final to come, I think he's one to keep. So I'll keep an eye on him. Cool. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We are at 7:58. The games kick off in 2 minutes, so I will get us out of here. If you enjoyed this episode, please do hit that like button and consider subscribing if you're new to the channel, and put on the notifications so you know when we go live next. I will actually be taking a little holiday next week because it is my birthday. So Mariner will be back from his holiday / scouting out Dubai for his move. So I think it's going to be
3
you and
weeks
Mariner.
Holiday for
Is
one.
that each of us take one? It
You.
was you first, then Mariner, then me. So you and Mariner will do the Game Week 36 show sometime next week. We'll put up some times. Then all 3 of us will be back for Game Week 37 together. So that'll be our last show with all three of us. But looking forward to that. And then game week 38, I think Mariner will be well and truly deeply into his move from Singapore to Dubai. So at that point, I think me and you are going to do game week 38, and we may try to get a secret guest on. So that could be quite fun. So yeah, a few more streams to go for the season. I hope you guys will have a fantastic game week 35. Whatever you do, just have fun. And who gives a fuck if people are copying or using spreadsheets for 20 hours? Just play it your own way, and don't then complain when people play it their own way, because it's not a way you agree with. Let's all just be nice to each other, and remember, it's a fucking game that we play for entertainment, and let's stop just going after each other on the timeline, because that just seems to be what FPL Twitter has become lately. So let's turn it back into the lovely community that we know it is, and get rid of all this bullshit that we've been seeing. Peace. Any final thoughts? Peace, yeah? Peace. I think that's all, isn't it? Yeah, peace, guys. Enjoy the matches tonight, and may game week 34 end well for you. See you guys next time. Peace.